Okay, we're about to dive into one of history's great puzzles. How did a tiny, and I mean tiny, persecuted group, starting in a forgotten corner of the Roman Empire, not just survive but eventually become its dominant faith? It's really a story about how an idea can be way more powerful than an army.
So that's the big question, right? You've got this small group of believers who, let's be honest, most people thought were pretty weird and even a little dangerous. And they're up against the full might of Rome. How is that even a fair fight? Well, the answer is wild, and it comes down to a two-part strategy. A brilliant offense and a defense so powerful that every attack just made it stronger. So let's start with the offense. And you just can't talk about that without zooming in on one guy, the Apostle Paul. You really have to think of him as less of a wandering preacher and more like a master strategist, a brilliant planner who literally drew up the blueprint for this whole incredible expansion.
And this is absolutely crucial. This explosive growth wasn't some happy accident. It was a deliberate, intentional, spirit-driven mission. And the man at the helm was Paul, the same guy who, ironically, once made it his mission to destroy the church. Now, he was the architect of its plan to expand from the fringes of the empire right into its very heart.
Paul's method was, frankly, genius. He didn't just wander from town to town, no. He targeted the big urban centers, places like Ephesus and Corinth. These were the nerve centers of the empire, where new ideas could spread like wildfire. Then, after planting a church, he'd stay connected through these incredibly detailed letters, the epistles, to keep them on track. He also led from the front, enduring beatings, prison, shipwrecks, which showed everyone his conviction was the real deal. And maybe most importantly, he was a master communicator, knowing exactly how to tailor his message, whether he was talking to Jews in a synagogue or Greeks in the middle of a marketplace. It was a full court press. Of course, this kind of rapid growth wasn't going to go unnoticed. The Roman Empire, a system built on absolute loyalty to Caesar, started seeing this new movement as way more than just a strange religion. They saw it as a real threat. And that's when the imperial counterattack began. And here's why there was a conflict in the first place. For Rome, if you didn't worship the emperor, that was treason, period. So when Christians started talking about their king and their kingdom, Rome heard rebellion. They were even called atheists because they refused to honor the pantheon of Roman gods. Their core belief that their ultimate allegiance was to God alone put them on a direct collision course with the entire Roman power structure.
And this conflict, well, it didn't stay theoretical. It got ugly fast. At first, it was localized, like with Emperor Nero, who famously used Christians as a scapegoat for the Great Fire of Rome. But by the 3rd century, things got way more serious. It became an empire-wide policy under Decius, where everyone had to get a certificate proving they'd sacrificed to the gods. Then it all culminated with Diocletian's Great Persecution, a brutal, systematic campaign to just wipe the faith off the map by burning its scriptures and tearing down its churches.
So you have to ask, when you're facing that level of organized, violent opposition from the most powerful empire on the planet, did it work? Was that it? Was this the end of the story for the early church?
Incredibly, no. The entire thing backfired. The very strategy designed to destroy the church somehow became a catalyst for its growth.
And this brings us to the second half of our answer, the great paradox of persecution. We've seen the smart offense. Now let's look at the unbreakable defense. And this was a defense built not on weapons or walls, but on something way, way more powerful. The key idea we have to understand here is martyrdom. The word itself comes from the Greek word for witness. So for the early Christians, a martyr's death wasn't seen as a defeat. Not at all. It was the ultimate testimony, the final act of witness, a public declaration that their real obedience was to God, not to any emperor. So this persecution created this incredible, powerful chain reaction. Instead of scaring people away, the courage of the martyrs just inspired everyone else to hold on tighter. The public executions, which were meant to be a warning, sometimes turned into recruiting events because people in the crowd were just blown away by that level of conviction. All that pressure also forced the church to get really clear on what it actually believed, which made it stronger. And the final irony? As believers fled persecution to find safety, they took their faith with them, planting new seeds in brand new places. Okay, so when you put these two pieces together, this brilliant offensive strategy and this unbelievably resilient defense, you get to the heart of this paradoxical victory. And this whole idea was summed up perfectly by an early church father named Tertullian, way back around the year 197. He wrote, "The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church."
I mean, that one sentence just nails the entire paradox. The more the empire tried to stomp out the faith with violence, the more it grew.
So there you have it. That's the solution to our puzzle. The early church didn't just hang on, it thrived. It was this incredible combination of a brilliant game plan for expansion and a faith so deep that the empire's worst attacks only made it stronger and helped it spread.
And, this whole story leaves us with a really provocative final thought. And it's not just about ancient history. What is it that makes any idea so powerful that the harder you fight against it, the faster and wider it spreads? It's something worth thinking about,